What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 12 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with your final depth chart update of the week. Week 12 kicks off Friday night between the Montreal Alouettes and the Toronto Argonauts, 6:30 Central Time. I'm recording this around 5 p.m., so that game it will be underway shortly if you're watching this right when it comes out. The depth chart update for that game was out this morning already, though, so go back, check out that video if you're looking for last-minute advice there. But I've got a depth chart update here for the 3 games on Saturday, because you're going to want to make sure your lineup is set accordingly for those as well. And let's dive right in and start off with the first game on Saturday, which I believe is the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Ottawa Red Blacks. Let's start with the Hamilton side of things. Dane Evans is back on the active roster after being out on the 6-game injured list, but he is not quite ready to go as the starter yet. Jeremiah Masoli gets the start yet again, especially after his last game out was his best game of the year. Masoli starts at quarterback. Evans is the backup. Also notable, the Cats getting wide receiver Brandon Banks back in the lineup this week after missing a couple due to injury. He will take his usual spot at wideout and will also be handling kick return and punt return duties this week. Typically it's Frankie Williams who does it, but I believe he is still out of the lineup this game in the defensive backfield. And last week it was Marcus Green handling the duties, but with Banks back in the lineup, they give the job to him, the job that kind of broke him into the CFL originally before turning into a top-tier receiver. The aforementioned Marcus Green is out of the lineup, is not on the game day roster. At running back, they will run with, they have 4 running backs dressed for this game. Sean Thomas Erlington, Jackson Bennett, Malik Irons, Don Jackson. They're listed in that order on the depth chart. Expect Thomas Erlington to get most of the touches probably, but we know Hamilton likes to spread the ball around in the run game a little bit. So be a little bit cautious in that regard. And at receiver, the overall crew there is Stephen Dunbar Jr., Jalen Acklin, Braylon Addison, Tim White, and Brandon Banks. So those are your 5 go-to receivers there that, when healthy, you should see in the Ticats offense week in and week out. As I mentioned on the wide receiver preview this week, I really like Stephen Dunbar Jr. as an option. Don't love Banks and Addison at their high prices, though. I think it's going to be tough, even with Banks getting those kick return touches, to have him be a successful fantasy play for the premium price you pay for him. Looking at the Ottawa side of this matchup, the Red Blacks decided to go with Caleb Evans once again as the starting quarterback in this game, giving him another shot. Last time out for Evans, 3 interceptions in that game against Montreal. I believe got pulled for Taryn Christian, who ended up going down with an injury that's going to keep him out for a while. So Evans gets the start, and Devlin Hodges, also known as Duck Hodges, will be the backup quarterback for Ottawa this week, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him rotate in for a couple of plays, so be a little cautious there if you're thinking of going with Evans as a cheap quarterback. Depending where the game's at, in the second half, maybe we see Hodges take over for a portion of the game. At running back, they are sticking with Delance Turner as the starter, who has started the past couple of games for them, taking the job from Timothy Flanders. Brendan Galanders will be the backup as per usual at that position. At receiver slash kick returner, no Devontae Dedmon this week for Ottawa. The dynamic return man himself did go down due to injury last game and is not ready to play in this game and could be out for a little while, I believe. So from the practice roster, making his debut with the Red Blacks this year, Terrence Williams will be lining up as the return man and handling those duties. He'll also be a backup receiver this week as well. So kind of in the same role we typically see Devontae Dedmon play. At receiver, they'll be rolling with pretty much the usual: RJ Harris, Ryan Davis, Anthony Coombs, Kenny Stafford, and Nate Bahar as your starters. Williams is a backup, and Michael Klukas is a backup there for Ottawa as well. So change at the backup quarterback position, change with Devontae Dedmon being out. Other than that, much the same across the board for the Ottawa Red Blacks in this game, with Hamilton coming up the first of a triple header on Saturday as we move into the second game of that day. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers hosting the BC Lions. The Bombers will be without running back Andrew Harris for the foreseeable future, likely until they're saying maybe the West Final, I've heard. Which the Bombers can clinch hosting, I believe, if they win this game. So no Andrew Harris. So Brady Oliveira gets the start at running back. Had a fantastic second half when he came in and replaced Harris last game for Winnipeg. So I'm excited to see what he can do as the starter once again this week. Zach Collaros is your quarterback, of course. No surprise there. And at receiver, it's the same crew we see week in and week out. Darvin Adams, Rasheed Bailey, Nick Dembski, Kenny Lawler, and Drew Wolodarski, with Janarian Grant returning kicks. One of the biggest changes last time out for the Bombers was the absence of Jermarcus Hardrick on the offensive line. He has missed practice quite a bit this week, but he is listed on the depth chart as a backup at right tackle behind Pat Neufeld. So given that he's listed as a backup and hasn't practiced much, I'm thinking it's unlikely he plays a whole ton in this game, but you never know with these things. If they could get him back in and he is healthy and ready to go, that would be a huge boost for the Bombers, as their offensive line had their worst day of the year with him out last time against Edmonton. Defensive side of the ball, a lot is pretty much the same as it was last week. Notable for Winnipeg, they've made a number of key new additions this week, bringing in kicker Sergio Castillo, bringing back Winston Rose at defensive back, and bringing in BC running back Shaq Cooper. None of them are on the game day roster. I'm pretty sure they are still in the quarantine protocol and will be for at least this game, if not the next one, before we get to see them in a Bombers uniform. I believe the Bombers are on a bye next week, so next time we see them out on the field, I imagine those guys will be out there with them. Looking at the BC side of the matchup, Michael Riley's your quarterback once again, of course, as the only real running back on the roster. James Butler starts at the running back position. Chris Rainey will be handling kick and punt returns. Most notable change for BC this week is new addition Devere Posey gets into the lineup at wide receiver. Posey played 2019 with the Montreal Alouettes, and put up 12 games that year, 780 yards, 3 touchdowns. He has played with BC before, had 8 games with them back in 2018. But this time out, he's coming back to BC after originally signing with Hamilton for this season, but getting injured and not playing a single game with the Ticats before they let him go. So he comes over to BC, and now he gets into the starting lineup, which I think will provide a nice boost that they've been missing with Lucky Whitehead out of the lineup. Of course, Whitehead is still out on the injured list, so at receiver, the Lions will line up with a starting crew of Keon Hatcher, Brian Burnham, Javon Coutoy, Lamar Durant, and Devere Posey. Shaq Johnson, who typically starts at a wideout spot, is the backup behind Posey this week. And Jacob Scarfoni also being listed as a backup behind Lamar Durant. So that's the Winnipeg BC game that takes you into the middle of the triple header on Saturday. Then we finally get into the last game of the week, another rematch, Saskatchewan and Calgary, third time this month. And the Riders lineup's going to look good amount different this time out from the last two. They get 2 massive pieces into the receiving corps this week. Shaq Evans is back after going down due to injury back in week 2. He is back in the lineup. He is ready to go. And new addition Duke Williams has finished his quarantine period and is ready to go in the lineup as well. So 2 major additions for the Riders at receiver this week. They're both listed on the starting depth chart. Now, what does that mean for the guys we've seen there typically? Well, they will be rolling with a crew of Evans, Williams, Braden Lenius, Kyron Moore, and Keon Schaefer-Baker as their starting five. So Ricardo Lewis does move off the active game day roster and won't play this week. And Justin McInnes, who filled the starting slot last game, won't be in the will be a backup behind Braden Lenius for this one. Also notable for Saskatchewan is Jamal Morrow, who's handled kick return duties for the past number of weeks, is not on the depth chart this time around. He is out, and it seems like Rashard Davis, backup receiver behind Kyron Moore, will be handling return duties to that for the Riders this week. Shout out to Alex Dormuth on Twitter for letting me know who was who's going to be handling those duties, because they don't list it on the depth chart. But Rashard Davis handling returns for the Riders this week and a backup at receiver. Cody Fajardo's the starting quarterback, of course. William Powell is the starting running back, with Keenan LaFrance the backup behind him there. And looking at Calgary, they're also getting a number of changes at receiver. Boy, it seems like they do each and every week. But a very good one for them this week is the return of receiver Kamar Jordan, who has missed the last few games due to injury, and he is back in the starting lineup. Notable missing here, Josh Huff not in the lineup this week, though. He did miss last game, I think, due to illness at the last second, and is not on the depth chart for this time around. So no Josh Huff, but Kamar Jordan is back. Also notable, Nick Hawley and Luther Hakunavanu are off the game day roster, and Sean Bain will come back in. He had a good game when he got in a couple of games ago against the Riders. He'll be the backup to Malik Henry. So a couple changes here and there. A bit surprised because Hawley and Hakunavanu have looked pretty good as options at receiver there for Calgary. But if you're confused by all these ins and outs, here's how they will line up. Bo Levi Mitchell is starting quarterback. Jake Mayer is the backup. He's back after being in a COVID protocol for the last game or two. Kadeem Carey is your starting running back. Ante Milanovic-Litre is the backup. At receiver, you've got Malik Henry with Sean Bain behind him. Markeith Ambles is a starter. Kamar Jordan's a starter. Richie Sindani, who led the team in receiving last week, is a starter again. Colton Hunchak, the backup behind him. And then Herji Mayala is the starter on the other wideout spot for Calgary, with Tyson Middlemost getting the backup slot again behind him, as he has for most weeks. Notable change as well, no Rock Thomas this week. If you were like me and considering potentially taking him as a 2501 was his salary, value play after he put up the top points of all running backs last week, and put up a 100-something yard kick return. Was expecting big things from a value play there, but he is out of the game this week. Milanovic-Litre looks to be taking his backup running back spot back, and will be starting there. And once again, Calgary doesn't list who return kicks on the depth chart. I would imagine it's some combination probably of Malik Henry, maybe Sean Bain getting in for a couple there as well. But I definitely like Henry as a potential option as a starting receiver there who handles returns. But certainly I cannot guarantee that he is the one doing return duties, as it seems to switch each and every week a little bit for Calgary. So those are your depth charts for the games this week. Gone through them all again. Make sure you check out last minute. If you're catching this right before the game, check out the Montreal and Toronto one from earlier today. Get those lineups set. 6:30 Central Time is the start of the first game of the week. The Saturday games kick off, I believe it's around, let me double check here, 3 o'clock tomorrow is when the triple header starts. That's Central Time. So get those lineups set. Make sure you don't take zeros from players who won't be playing. And if you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section or tweet them at me at CooperTrooper42. There's a link in the video description. It starts with a K. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy alongside myself and other viewers, you can check out the link in the description to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix group over on the official CFL Fantasy site. Play alongside myself and other viewers this week and every week throughout the 2021 CFL season. And then one final note, make sure you check right before the game if you can to make sure there are no last-minute scratches. Some people got burned by those in recent weeks. William Stanback last week, Josh Huff last week. If I see anything right before the games, I make sure to tweet them out as well. So make sure you hit that follow button to get that info. If it's last minute, I probably won't have a chance to get a video out. So don't expect to see it necessarily in your YouTube feeds. That does it for everything for Week 12. Best of luck this week. I hope you crush it. I hope to see you at the top of the leaderboard. And of course, we'll be back early next week to recap the performances from this week and start looking ahead to week number 13 here on the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.